The structure of the plant cell. The plant cell is the basic building block of the plant. It's surrounded by a cell membrane covered with a rigid wall, characteristic of plant, which gives the cell its shape. The inside of the plant cell is filled with a viscous liquid, the cytoplasm, in which flow the small components essential to the cell's life, the organelles. Among the organelles are the nucleus, the ribosomes, the vacuole, the mitochondria, and the chloroplasts. The organelles fulfill various vital functions such as nutrition, respiration, and making proteins that will be used to help the plant grow. The wall is rigid and relatively impermeable. It limits deformation of the cell and protects it from dehydration. The nucleus is a small spherical body located inside the nucleus. It's involved in the making of protein. Chloroplasts contain chlorophyll, a green pigment that absorbs luminous energy and thus enables organic matter, sugars, to be made. This process is called photosynthesis. The structure of a flowering plant. Flowering plants differ from other plants because they reproduce through flowers. The flower is the most complex reproductive system in the plant world. The rest of the plant is composed of stems, leaves, and roots, the plant system. These organs are formed of differentiated tissues. A differentiated tissue has certain types of cells that are organized specifically to perform a particular function in the plant. For example, the tissue of the terminal bud at the top of the stem specializes in upward growth. Flowering plants have tissues whose elongated cells form vessels that specialize in the transport of nutritive substances in the plant. The flower, often colorful and scented, bears the reproductive organs. It produces fruits, then seeds. The stem is the main part of the plant. It supports the other above ground parts and allows for transportation of nutritive substances. The leaf, which grows on the stem or a branch, is usually thin and flat. It specializes in light absorption and photosynthesis. Herbaceous plants and woody plants are very different in appearance, but they have the same main organs: roots, stem, leaves, and flowers. Taproot system. It grows downward and has ramifications called lateral roots. The lateral roots have the same features as the main root. The finest ramifications are called rootlets. Absorbent root hairs are elongated cells that absorb water and minerals. The tip of the root, the growing point, is made up of cells that are constantly dividing. It's covered by a root cap. Root growth. Roots grow in length thanks to the continuous production of new cells by the growing points at the end of the rootlets. The roots of numerous flowering plants may also grow thicker thanks to a specialized tissues called cambium. Every year, cambium produces sap-conducting vessels, xylem and phloem, which are juxtaposed against the vessels of the previous year and cause the root to thicken. The cells of the epidermis are permeable only when the root is young, in the growth and feeder root zones. The cortical parenchyma is a tissue formed of cells full of nutritive reserves. Lateral root in formation. The xylem is a conductive tissue whose vessels transport water and minerals from the root to the rest of the plant. Structure of the stem. The stem has two parts, the bark and the stele. The bark includes the cuticle, a waxy envelope that protects the stem, the epidermis, the outermost cellular layer of the stem, and the cortical parenchyma, whose cells, often rich in chlorophyll, contribute to plant nutrition through photosynthesis. The bark protects the stele, which is composed of the pith and the sap-conducting vessels, xylem and phloem. The cuticle, usually thin, is an impermeable membrane that protects the stem against shock and drying out. The epidermis forms a barrier between the stem and the outside environment. The phloem transports organic matter produced in the leaves to the rest of the plant. Trees are large-sized plants that contain wood, a tissue impregnated with a substance called lignin, which makes it rigid. Deciduous trees, naked in winter, are distinct from trees with persistent leaves, which are always green. A tree has an underground part, the roots, and two above-ground parts, the trunk and the crown. The trunk is a single woody stem that ramifies into limbs at a certain height. In temperate regions, vegetation is subjected to alternating seasons. Deciduous trees have adapted to this seasonal rhythm by losing all their leaves over the course of several weeks in autumn. They spend the winter with naked branches, and new leaves grow in the spring. A flower usually has petals, sepals, and reproductive organs. This typical organization is often modified. For example, the nettle flower has no petals. It is said to be epithelous. Among the majority of flowering plants, the male and female reproductive organs are carried on a single flower, mixed or hermaphroditic flower, such as the lily. But some species have separate male and female flowers. They may be carried on a single plant, monoecious species such as corn, or on separate plants, dioecious species such as the kiwi. However, flowers have one invariable characteristic. The ovules are always enclosed in a hollow organ, the ovary. Fertilization of the ovule leads to the formation of a seed and a fruit. Diagram of a flower. The components that make up a flower are called fluoroparts. There are 4 types of flower parts: sepals, which form the calyx, petals, which form the corolla, and the male, stamens, and female, pistils, reproductive organs. Flower parts are arranged in concentric rings. A floral diagram represents the arrangement of flower parts of a given flower to be presented semantically. The calyx is the group of sepals. The corolla is formed of all of the petals. Stamens are the male organs of a flower. A stamen is composed of a filament and an anther. The pistil is the female organ. Located in the center of the flower, it's composed of an ovary, a style, and a stigma. Some flowers have several pistils. Capiculum. Flowers with no peduncle are inserted on a common tray-shaped receptacle. Pollination agents. Pollen grains are produced by the anthers at the ends of the stamens. They must be transported to the stigma at the top of the pistil. Pollination agents, which may be animals, the wind, or humans, provide this transportation. Entomophilous pollination. The insect lands on the flower, attracted by its color, odor, or sweet nectar. Pollen grains become attached to its body. It then moves to another flower. A few pollen grains happen to drop onto the stigma of the second flower it visits. Fertilization results from the germination of a pollen grain on the stigma of a flower. It consists of the fusion of sexual cells called gametes, which are produced by specialized organs called gametophytes, pollen grain and embryo sac. The male and female sexual cells fuse into a single cell, the zygote, which will multiply to form an embryo. Among flowering plants, fertilization is double. Another pair of reproductive cells from a tissue loaded with the nutritive reserves, the albumin, which is used in embryo development. The mechanism of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis generally takes place in leaves. Leaf cells contain large quantities of chloroplasts. These organelles contain a green pigment, chlorophyll, capable of absorbing luminous energy. This energy is used to make sugar molecules from the water drawn from the ground by the roots and carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. The sugars produced by photosynthesis are then distributed throughout the plant. Metabolism is the group of chemical reactions that enables a living being to live and develop. There are reactions that build living matter, anabolism, and degradation reactions, catabolism. These reactions take place within each cell of the organism. Photosynthesis, which results in the manufacture of sugars, allows the plant to grow. It consumes luminous energy, water, and carbon dioxide. Respiration, on the other hand, consists of the degradation of sugars. It generates the energy needed for the plant's different activities, such as growth and reproduction. For the plant to grow, the quantity of organic matter produced by photosynthesis must exceed losses due to respiration. Gas exchanges. Gas exchanges between the plant and the atmosphere are performed through tiny pores called stomata, most of which are located on the leaves. Stomata are made of two cells surrounding an opening, the astile. Depending on the plant's needs, the stomata open or close. During photosynthesis, plants consume carbon dioxide and release oxygen. The opposite occurs when plants respire. Respiration and photosynthesis thus play a major role in maintaining the balance of gases in the atmosphere. Essential minerals. The main elements that nourish the plant, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, come from water from the ground and carbon dioxide from the air. A plant formation is a community of plant species among which some predominate or determine a characteristic landscape. For example, the forest is populated with large trees, while the prairie is formed of grassy plants. Vegetation varies according to the climate and the nature of the soil. There are 8 main plant formations distributed around the planet. The boreal forest is a vast stretch of forest composed mainly of conifers, but with a few deciduous trees. The temperate forest is composed mainly of trees, among them oak, ash, and beech. The temperate prairie is a herbaceous zone in which gramineous plants predominate and there are almost no trees. In regions where the winter is relatively dry and cold, the marquise is a plant landscape that is degraded, composed of shrubs with persistent leaves adapted to summer drought. The tropical rainforest is a dense forest with very high biodiversity. It grows thanks to abundant, regular precipitation. The savanna is a herbaceous area dominated by large gramineous plants and shrubs in warm regions marked by seasonal rains. The tundra is a plant formation of cold, dry regions composed of mosses, lichens, grasses, bushes, and dwarf trees. The desert is a very arid region in which precipitation is below 250 mm per year and vegetation is sparse. Subjected to a lack of water and aggravating factors such as very high temperatures of drying winds, plants in dry environments have adapted in various ways. They generally have organs filled with water called succulent organs that enable them to cope with aridity. Plants that have such water reserves are called succulent plants. The cactuses are the succulent plants par excellence. There are about 2,000 cactus species. Some cacti can store almost 3,000 liters of water in their stem. The leaves of succulent plants are usually small in order to limit water evaporation. Very often, the leaf buds do not develop and remain reduced to the form of spines when the leaves performed by the stem. The water lily. Water lilies are only partially submerged in water. Their large, round leaves, about 25 cm in diameter, spread over the surface of the water. The top side of the water lily leaf is covered with an impermeable cuticle that is punctuated with tiny pores called stomata. The stomata allow for gas exchanges with the atmosphere.